So do we have anyone from Region 1? Okay. Anyone from Region 2?
Yeah, this is Nick Foley, IWD Title III.
Thanks, Nick. Region 3-4?
Val Bonnie is on behalf of the Regional Workforce Board and the chief elected officials.
Okay, thanks, Val. Region 5? Region 6? Okay. Region 7?
This is Kyle Kleby-Kane, Operations Manager in Waterloo.
Carla, organist, Region 7 Local Workforce Board.
Amber Youngblood from Region 7 Workforce Board.
Mike Howell, Region 7 Vocational Rehabilitation.
Thank you, Region 7. Region 8?
My God.
Region 9?
Jeremy Ritchie with IWD Title III.
Region 10?
Scott Mather, Iowa Works.
Kim Vesica, Regional Workforce Development Board.
Patty Manuel, Regional Workforce Board.
Okay. Region 11?
Heather Garcia, Central Iowa Workforce Development Board.
Region 12? Region 13? Region 14?
Jolene Griffith, Regional Workforce Development Board.
And Schlapia, Regional Workforce Development Board.
Thank you. Region 15? And Region 16?
Carolyn Farley, Title III, Iowa Workforce Development.
Miranda Swafford, Region 16 Workforce Board.
Thank you, Region 16. Okay, let's get started, and feel free to mute yourselves and unmute yourselves when you have a question. Again, I'll try to be mindful of the chat feature. We'll go through the slides, and at any time if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. The purpose of today's meeting is that under WIOA, the local boards are intended to coordinate the activities with education and training. And part of that, in accordance with Title II, is that whenever there's a grant application process that the state does, it requires the local boards to review the applications that are received that are determined eligible for funding, to review those applications as it pertains to the alignment of the local plan. So within your region, you have local plans that were revised and approved. If you go back to 2016 and 2017, they would have been reviewed then, and they would have been approved by the state. So those are the plans that we're looking at in regards to the applications that are going to be coming forward with the AEFLA grant application. Is that a question, or do we just have a okay. So under WIOA, there's a rationale and a reason that the local boards are involved in the process of the review. Now, during this review, it's not the local boards that are going to be selecting or indicating which application that they want to fund. It's merely looking at the applications, looking at your local plans, and determining whether or not the responses that were provided by the applicant are aligned with the vision and the mission and the activities that the local plan highlighted when it was submitted and approved by the state. This is an opportunity to highlight areas of suggestions for the applicant in which they might do better alignment of their activities. You're able to give feedback. The scoring of the alignment does not determine whether or not that applicant is eventually funded by the Department of Education for providing adult education services. Now, currently, there are 2 grant applications that are out for applicants to reply to. Those are our Section 231 funds, which is the base grant for adult education. Those are all services related to adult basic education, ESL services, and IEP activities, and corrections education. There's also a separate grant that's called Section 243. That's a grant for integrated English literacy civics education. You can see why we call it IELCE, even though sometimes it's difficult to remember all the letters. Those 2 applications are the ones that, depending upon the region, depending upon the applicant, you might receive multiple applicants to be reviewing in that process. Now, I'll walk through the steps of how that review needs to be done by the local areas. But before I go too much further, are there any initial questions that you as board members might have in this yet? Okay. It's important to keep in mind, while there are several questions that an applicant is responding to in the grant application, there's only a certain number of those questions that relate to the local plan and relates to the local workforce development board. So while you will have access to the entire application, in your review, we're only asking you to look at a couple of the considerations that the federal government requires and the state of Iowa requires for a grant application to respond to. So while there are 13 federal considerations and several questions related to get the response necessary to know which applicant that is eligible and able to provide the services for adult education, there's 4 in particular that we're asking local boards to review in that process. And those are actually contained in just 2 sections of the grant application. And we'll walk through where those can be found and how that needs to be reviewed. So again, you'll have access to the entire application. We're not asking you to read the entire application. We're asking you to look at, in particular, 4 specific questions as it relates to alignment. Absolutely, the slides will be available on the department's website. We have a page there, and I'll provide that link in the group chat here before we finish, where all grant application information is being housed. So this recording, the slides, the review form, and another document that we'll talk about in today's presentation will all be housed in that section. So you'll be able to access that. Those who are not on the call will be able to access it, so that all will be able to perform the required functions of this review. So great question. The process for the review has been broken up into 5 steps. And you're lucky to know that not all of these steps involve you in that review process. So as applicants are currently in the process of completing their applications, they will finish that, and as of right now, they will submit their completed applications to the Iowa Department of Education through the state grant management system, Iowa Grants, on April 3rd. That's currently the due date that has been set for those applications to be received. Once those are received on April 3rd, the department will review and determine eligibility. They'll determine whether or not the entities that applied meet the federal definition under WIOA, that they are an eligible entity, that they have documented and evidence of prior performance for adult education, and only those that are determined eligible will be moved on to the review process. And in that review process, some local areas may receive multiple applications per grant. As indicated, I've said that there's 2 grants currently out there. So you might have 2 applicants that are applying for the base grant. Because of the area, the counties that your region might cover, you might have some that are included in a portion of your region. As a result of that, it does require your review of that application. So even though 75% of the activities of this applicant is not going to be performed within your workforce area, they do need to submit their application will be sent to you for your review to see whether or not they're in alignment with your local plan. And to give you an opportunity to give them guidance on how they could be in better alignment with your local plan. So we will screen out all those that are determined non-eligible, and you will only receive through Iowa grants those that are determined eligible. We'll provide to a designated point of contact access to the online applications with a rubric for that review and guidance on which part of the local plan you should be looking at as it relates to those 4 questions I indicated earlier. So we will need, and there has been shared a Google sheet that has been collecting that point of contact. That point of contact will be the person that will follow through with the next step, if you will, of the process of the review. That will be the person that will log into Iowa Grants, open up the different applications, and submit your responses to the review form in Iowa Grants and send that on the way. We'll walk through what that's going to look like for that point of contact. And again, a single point of contact per region will be what the department refers and will be sending information to. That's through the system of the grant management. So once that point of contact has set up an account in Iowa Grants, they're going to be notified when applications are released to them for review. The system will generate those emails. They'll also send reminder emails because there will be a due date associated with that. So Right now, I have indicated here in the slide in yellow what we anticipate the time frame for the review to be. We anticipate that the process will begin April 10th and that the reviews will be due April 24th. Now, the reason I've highlighted this is because, as we know, there's current conditions that are proving to be a little hectic in the community, and we're constantly reviewing whether or not dates need to be adjusted according to that. At this time, those have not been, but we are always mindful if there's an additional need for extended time. So because this system is online, it does allow the ability for remoting in, if you will, or doing it virtually. We feel that this doesn't pose an unnecessary risk for a committee to come together and to review the applications. This can be done virtually. It will allow the point of contact to download and share the information with other committee members, both the review form and the application itself, so that there does not need to be face-to-face meetings if that's not conducive both to time and to other reasons. Once the reviews are submitted, if they're not submitted on time, you will be locked out of the system and will not be able to submit that review. But the process will continue on without your input. So it's important to be mindful of the due date, and the system will be set with that due date. So even if the date changes from April 24th and it might have a little bit more time, the system will track that and will send reminders up until the point of the due date. And once beyond that, it will lock you out from being able to submit that review. But because we are cognizant of wanting to have all the applicants to be aware of whether or not they're funded with a contract start date of July 1, the process does need to continue onward because there's 2 other layers of review that needs to occur before the notification and the awarding for the grants. But we do want to give all local boards an opportunity to share and to be able to provide comment. Quick pause there for any questions or any gaps that I might have caused and or doubts that you might have at this point. Okay. Seeing none, I'll move on to what is undoubtedly the hardest part of this process. Unfortunately, and the least piece that I have any control over, and that is access to Iowa grants. There is, as I mentioned, a state system that we use for grant management, and that is Iowa Grants. And there is a process related to the registration for that. I will provide, this link is a 14-page, let's see if I can share, stop share, and share this piece. Can't see that yet, can you? we go. Okay. So we have a 14-page document here that goes very by the book in how to register for an account in Iowa Grants. It also allows you to check to see whether or not you already have a username and just forgot the password in here. I'll provide the link to this document that walks you through how to get into the system, which is going to be very important. It has a retrieval process here to recall your password, log in if you forget it. It has rules associated with that, and it does create a way that you need to use the same computer device that you start the login registration with to complete the process. So I will point that out. And again, this is a very detailed by the script screenshot that will give you examples of the email that will come to you. It will define the time limit that you have to complete the registration process. You have 48 hours to go back and log in again. It gives you the help links in which to contact the company if you're not able to complete the registration, and it will tell you, and this is a very important part here, when you're completing your personal information, that you select a program area of interest, adult literacy, because this is the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act funding opportunity. This will trigger that these are coming to me for approval, and I'll be able to turn that around within hours. And that will then trigger your email receipt so that you're able to finish the registration login. That will certainly expedite the process for your program. If you forget that program area of interest, your registration might be lost in limbo for a while until you contact the company. But if you're able to make sure in this document to follow all of these steps, and when you have the program area of interest indicate adult literacy, you'll be able to get this registration done within an hour rather than the lengthy delay that it talks about within here. So this document will be available to you. Accessing Iowa Grants for a single point of contact for each region is going to be critical for the review process. That single point of contact does not need to be the chair of the committee, does not need to be the chair of the local workforce board, but it does need to be someone on the board that will be responsible for logging into the grant system, opening up the different applications that are being received, responding to the review, and submitting the review. So that is a critical piece of it. As it says, there is 2 phases to the process, and again, I would just recommend following through with the document, the 14 pages, going through each step, and you'll be able to get it done easily within less than an hour of the approvals and the notifications being received in the email, and you'll be able to log in if you don't already have access to Iowa grants. Questions at this point? Okay, you might have some questions related to the committee that needs to be formed for the review. The local board designee, with the assistance of a committee, is to perform this function. So the committee can include 2, can include 3. I find that sometimes if there's debate about alignment or giving a score, that an odd number is always beneficial for that, depending upon your makeup of your board and how many members are there. It doesn't need to be a very large committee. That's an important thing to consider. It also may include subject matter experts. So if you have someone that's familiar with English language acquisition, adult basic education, that's not a provider, but part of their support services is working with youth or out of school adults, and they're willing to serve on the committee, that level of expertise might be beneficial to the committee to pull and to use in the review process. So don't hesitate to consider that when forming the committee together. It's also cognizant of the committee that there should not be a clear conflict of interest in those that are reviewing the application, either a social connection or a financial connection between the applicants. So I think that's a lot of the reason why we have Title III representatives on the call when we've got Title I, and that is being provided by a community college, in the likelihood that a community college might be an applicant for adult education Title II services, where there would be a conflict then of them reviewing and looking for alignment. Again, when you consider the review, it's not being used for consideration of the award. It is looking though for the best alignment and suggestions for better alignment based upon the applicant's submitted responses to the questions and what has been written and approved in the local plan. But still, we want to ensure that in that review and in that commentary that's being provided back, that it's not being perceived that there's any bias or any conflict of interest being given to an applicant. Any questions about that, about the committee makeup necessary for the review of the adult education applications?
Alex, will the committee need to sign conflict of interest statements?
There will be on the review form an area there for a statement that there is not a conflict of interest, and if there is, there will be a place there for that committee to respond to how there could be perceived a conflict of interest. If there's nothing marked there and it later comes forward that there was, because the document will also include all the representatives of the committee and their positions. So it's better to make sure that the committee is formed that doesn't have it, so that you don't have to explain anything in the review form. But there is a place in the document for that information to go. And then that is signed by the committee and then scanned to me and then electronically submitted in Iowa Grant. And as we go to the next couple of pages, I'll be showing you what that form looks like, as well as what it looks like in Iowa grants to access this information. Any other questions about the committee or the committee makeup? Okay. I have to switch the share screen again, but before I do that, I just wanted to make sure that there will be a place in the Iowa grants, as well as on the department's website, where you'll be able to download the review form. I'm going to open it up and show you what it looks like today. And it can be filled out electronically, and then that information is then electronically entered into Iowa grants. In the review process, the grant system doesn't allow a place for a document to be uploaded, but the directions do indicate in the form on how to send that to me. Just email it to me. My address is at the end. It's also included in the Iowa grants. So this is what the review form looks like. Stop the share. Okay. Can you see that? And the rubric should show the first table there is collecting the review committee members. Again, we're collecting the name, the position in the community as a representative of the local workforce development board. And then we've got a table below that is looking at alignment, and it provides you a guidance scale of how to score that, ranging from 0 to 5, with another text area there for suggestions for better alignment. The instructions are references to areas within the grant application and areas within your local plan in which you would find information that you would be looking for alignment. So in this case, these first three questions are related to the grant application under the section Program Design and Leadership, and it's looking at economic and workforce analysis in your local plan, activities analysis in your local plan, facility career pathways and co-enrollment, and core partners. So as you look in those areas of your local plan, you're looking at how the grant applicant responded to these three questions under Program Design and Leadership, and you're scoring whether or not they are not aligned, partially aligned, or fully aligned with what had been included in your local plan. For anything that's not fully aligned, you're providing some suggestions for better alignment. In the grant application, there's a section called Community Interaction and Outreach. And there's two questions there that you're looking at the grant application's response, and you're comparing that to the Local Workforce Development Plan, Part 3, Regional Strategies. And you're looking at, well, what was in the local plan and how did they respond? And is that response not aligned, partially aligned, or fully aligned? And if not fully aligned, what are some suggestions for better alignment? Then finally, overall, is the application, in particular to the sections reviewed, would you rate it not aligned, partially aligned, fully aligned? And then, as Val asked about the conflict of interest, this statement here indicates that there is not a conflict of interest, and that this discussion about what would disqualify a reviewer has occurred prior to the reviewing. This is then signed, scanned, and emailed to me. The information in here is taken and included in Iowa Grant. Any questions about the form before I close this share and go back to the PowerPoint? So if you were a local board and you had 2 grant applications that were going to provide services for adult education within your region, your local area, you would fill this form out for both of them. You would fill out 2 forms, one for each grant application, by reviewing those questions in the grant application and comparing it to those sections of your local plan that are highlighted here in the instructions. Okay. I'll briefly walk through the process in Iowa Grants that you'll find once you've completed the registration process. You'll receive an email notice saying that you have a review that's due on this date. You would then log back into Iowa Grants, and you would see a page like this, and there would be a tab there for review. Your point of contact, that person would go to this page, click on that review, and they would then see within there a list of the applications to be reviewed. Now, that could say that they have multiple opportunities to review, or it could say just one opportunity. But within each one of those, you would be able to see the due date for that application, who that application was from, the organization that application was sent in. Once you click on the application title, it would open at the bottom of that screen to a section there where you'd be able to print their application. So when it says print to PDF, you'd be able to print to PDF, save it on your file, and then you could email that application to your review committee. Then they would have access to that application to be able to review it, to be able to give feedback onto the review form on how to do that. You could also meet together if that was convenient to have one meeting in which you review this collectively to provide the review, at which time you would then click that second blue tab there that says review. When you click the second tab there that says review, it will open up this pop-up feature. And it will indicate the review form that needs to be filled out for that. It's only one form, and it's the same. It looks the same, kind of, in the Iowa grant system as the paper form that you just walked through. You would have that once you click on the review form name there, an opportunity to download that rubric right there within Iowa Grants. If you didn't go to the department's website and pull it off from there already, you would have an opportunity right here to log into your region and pull up your local plans if that was something that you didn't have readily available. You could log in right there and pull it up. It again has my email address of once you're done with the paper form of where to send it to. And then below that, it has what looks like that paper form where you're providing a response to the questions of how well does the applicant describe the responsiveness. So that's the first question in the paper form, and you're putting your response 0 to 5 and any suggestions for better alignment for that question. You walk your way through all of those series of questions and scores, giving them a range between 0 to 5, and then you click save so that your responses are saved in the system. Once the responses are saved in the system, and as you can see here, this received a score of 5 for their first response, and so on. It would not let you save it if you missed a field, if you did not complete a field. The suggestions for better alignment are optional, so you can leave them blank. However, if you want that applicant who might eventually be awarded adult education funds to have better alignment with the local plan, my hope would be that you would give them some suggestions towards that. But it's not a required field. The only required fields are the score, the range, if you will, of 0 to 5. And if you missed one, it won't let you save until you go back and complete that field. Once you've completed all required fields, you can save, and then you mark as complete. It will take you back to this review form that has a check mark, a date that you completed it, and you'll be able to submit the review as long as it's still within the due date for that review. If it's beyond that due date, it'll be marked late and it will not be part of the considerations, nor will it factor into or be available for that local application. So again, being mindful of the due dates is important, and the system does try to help give you when those due dates are due by giving you warnings and reminders, if you will, of that you have an application there ready for review. Once you've clicked the submit the review, you're done. That is it. I receive notifications that level of review is done, and then I'm able to move them to the next areas for review. But your commitment's done. Scanning those and emailing those to me, they can be done at that same time. Then you're completely done. And they're not time sensitive as this system is. I would like them for a hard copy for having that ability to check that, but it's not critical. It's just a way to notarize that this has been done. That hard form is, again, a way for you to be able to share what needs to be filled out in the system by just having one person going to the system, but other people are able to have that form, and it's the same numbers, same questions that it's asking. So again, you can do it remotely, can do it virtually, and you can do it separately if that works out best, or you can do it collectively through a conference call and walk through the system together and give the scores. That brings me to the end of the presentation on the review for the Local Workforce Development Board. I hope I haven't bored you entirely, but I'm open for any questions that you might have in the process. And again, I thank you for your time and your attention in this matter. I know it's one other thing that the board has to do that might seem insignificant, but I can tell you this is very important to the Title II providers. It's very critical that we are aligning our efforts and working together to serve the population within those areas that need our services. So your input is valued and appreciated. I'll take any questions that you might have. And again, this recording, these materials will be on the department's website. Let me put in chat here where that will be located. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you. And is there anyone that joined later after we did the roll call for a region that I know that I missed? There's a couple here that.
Yeah, this is Mike Cockrum in Region 15. I came on about 5 minutes after the call.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Was that a chipmunk or? Doreen, what region are you in? 14? Okay, thank you.